The anti-gun crowd often uses the argument that you shouldn't have a gun because you don't need one. I'll tell you why this argument is irrelevant, and I'll tell you why they do it. Why do you need to carry a gun in public? Why do you need more than 10 rounds in a magazine? Why do you need to own an AR-15? Well, these are all questions designed to invalidate and weaken the right to keep and bear arms. Our founding fathers didn't write the Bill of Needs, but there are a couple of reasons the anti-gun crowd has injected the idea of need into the conversation. You see, by implying the idea that gun ownership is tied to some form of necessity, it gives legislators an open door to require gun owners to define that necessity in order to have a gun, carry a gun, or purchase a specific type of firearm. Now, it's impossible to define, and it implements another layer of boundary to gun ownership. Now, by doing this, a system is now created that allows firearm ownership to be authorized or denied based on a subjective definition of the word need. In other words, because need has been brought into the mix, your right is now up for debate. You've given up your right and traded it in for something that can easily be denied by people who don't want you to have a gun. You might remember Joe Biden saying, "You don't need an AR-15 or 30 rounds," when Democrats were trying to pass anti-gun legislation.
You don't need an AR-15. It's harder to aim, it's harder to use, and in fact, you don't need 30 rounds to protect yourself.
All part of the need propaganda campaign. Now, this was done to normalize the need requirement. But wait a minute, I thought I had a right to own a firearm. Well, not if you allow another person to decide whether you need something, and your right is allowed to be challenged by someone else's opinion. Then your gun ownership is no longer a right, but now a government-issued privilege based on another person's idea of what you need or don't need. So how do we define the word need? Well, the Oxford English Dictionary defines it as circumstances in which something is necessary or that require some course of action. Necessity. Need and necessity basically mean the same thing, but people use them without offering any real way to measure them. A solid definition should spell out what happens if that need isn't met. Like, if you don't have this, then X will happen. But that kind of clarity is almost never there. And that's exactly why gun control advocates love using the word need. It's vague on purpose. You can't define it clearly or measure it, which makes it easy to twist in a debate. Is it a necessity for you to carry a gun in public? Well, the gun grabbers can easily argue that it's not a necessity. Implementing need into the equation now requires you to prove that without carrying a gun in public, or without having more than 10 rounds in your magazine, or without being able to own an AR-15, you'll now die or something catastrophic will happen to you. You're now forced to define your necessity. Now, this is a hard thing to validate because we can't see into the future and we can't prove that our gun ownership is a necessity. Even if we could see into the future and prove that we would die without the firearm, even death is not a measurement used to determine need. The gun grabbers know this. They know you'll never really be able to prove necessity. That's why they want need to be a metric by which your right is measured. And even if you could prove the hypothetical that you'll die without a gun, they can create a hypothetical that you could have protected yourself with another form of defense, or running away, or even, as some liberals have said, have a discussion with the bad guy. Our founding fathers could have easily written the Second Amendment to read, "The need of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." But they didn't. They knew better. They knew that need would be subjective. They didn't want gun ownership to be argued with or influenced by personal beliefs or feelings. They wanted it to be recognized as an inherent entitlement protected from being challenged. Some blue states have defied the Bill of Rights for decades and have required that those who wish to carry a gun in public demonstrate a special need or proper cause in order to be allowed the privilege of exercising a God-given right. Now, there's also the implementation of may issue, taking the place of shall issue. This is another layer of the need requirement where judges, police departments, and handgun permitting officers may let you exercise your Second Amendment rights if they feel like it. The Bruin case out of New York State was based on this exact constitutional violation. Prior to Bruin, you could pass your background check and meet all the requirements only to find out that the person authorizing your permit to carry a gun in public had the authority to deny you based on whether they thought you really needed to carry in public. Many of these state laws have been deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court in recent years, but that doesn't stop the gun grabbers from trying. Using need to force gun owners into an impossible argument is only part of the strategy. There's also a propaganda element to the need strategy. By normalizing the need requirement in the eyes of the public, even if it doesn't make its way into written law, it still becomes a valid measurement in the minds of people who don't know any better, because many people believe that if you don't need something, you shouldn't have the right to possess it. By convincing the public that the Second Amendment doesn't really mean you have a right to keep and bear arms, it creates the foundation for future legislation. Conditioning the younger generation to subconsciously believe that gun ownership should be justified by need will result in future legislation when people who hold those beliefs are able to implement new laws, despite what the Second Amendment actually says. For the gun grabbers, it's not always about ramming through bad legislation. It's often about conditioning the collective mind of American society for future outcome. If need becomes the standard for allowing people to engage in so-called dangerous activities, then it's easy to see how other basic freedoms could be taken away. After all, who really needs to drive a fast car, or have a backyard pool, or cook on a gas stove? You see the problem? If we start letting the government decide what we're allowed to do based on some vague idea of need, we'll all end up living in a bubble. So where do gun owners fail with respect to this anti-gun strategy? The problem with this argument is that we gun owners often defend our need to own a gun. Well, I need a gun for hunting. I need a gun for home safety. I need a gun for target shooting. There are many reasons we think we need a gun, but justifying the need argument with a reason validates the anti-gunner's strategy. The minute we do that, we're capitulating to this game and normalizing the need requirement. By justifying our need, we're playing right into their hand. The Second Amendment doesn't read, "The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed," as long as the people can provide a list of compelling reasons why those arms are needed. So don't tell them why you need a gun. That's exactly what they want you to do, and it's none of their damn business. Our founding fathers named the first 10 amendments the Bill of Rights, not the Bill of Needs. Thanks for watching Bullet Points. I'm Dan Wass for Gun Owners Foundation. You can find more Second Amendment content and updates at gunowners.com.